Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video we are taking a look at the Sony WH-1000XM6 flagship noise cancellation headphones that make a few refinements and a few physical changes too. Sony's in a pretty fortunate position. When you're at the top of your game and you're at the top of a category, in this case being headphones, how do you make the newest version that much better than the previous one? So the WH-1000XM6, which I will just call the XM6 going forward, are the newest pair, and they come 3 years after the previous XM5. That distance in time doesn't actually make the XM5s obsolete or not good anymore. They're actually still very viable. So there's a question over upgrading when it comes to this, but also whether or not these are the headphones you should be getting if you're coming from another brand. I'm going to try and address those things, but the first thing to know is that there are some changes here. So while Sony didn't reinvent anything here, it did make some refinements and went back to a feature that they missed on the previous version. I'll start with that because the fact that they fold, or actually fold flat and fold in, lowers the footprint. This is something that Sony removed in the XM5. They have brought it back here, but I'm sure by popular demand, and so it makes it a lot easier when you're putting them in the case and you're traveling with them. It makes the footprint noticeably smaller compared to the previous model. So definitely a win as far as doing that. I find also that the hinges are a little better as well. They're not as flimsy as they were in the previous version as well, and I think that was something also that users complain about. No real complaints as far as the construction generally. I'm sure there'll be some concerns over how much they hold up over time, especially since these are the kind of headphones you probably want to be using for a few years. The cushioning is not different on the ear cups, although it is on the headband. And so on the headband, it's going to be a little bit thinner. This is an interesting case where you may find that they're more comfortable on the ears, but maybe not as much on the head. At least for me, I noticed the headband could have used a little bit extra cushioning in my opinion, although the shape changes slightly, largely because of the outside. So because now we have rounded ear cups, that makes the touch controls a lot more intuitive. At least I felt that they were more intuitive than the previous ones. They don't really change. I mean, they're largely the same. It's just that, again, the surface area that you're touching is a little more expansive because of the circular design. Another thing that Sony changed that I really like is that they have changed the power button to a circular button. So when you're feeling for those, I mean, there's only 2 buttons, but when you're feeling for both of them in the back, it's very obvious that you know what you're pressing. The comfort part of it and the passive isolation part all play key roles here because naturally what Sony's headphones are known for is noise cancellation. I'm going to get into that, and I'm going to tie it into the audio as well, because what is happening on the inside here is that Sony did make some changes. So 2 key things are that there are more mics on here. The previous XM5 had 8 microphones. These have 12. That's significant because that means that there are more mics to work on canceling noise, amplifying your voice during calls, and also improving the ambient sound also when you want to hear what's going on around you. The other side of it is that there's new 30mm drivers inside. So the sound quality gets a little bit of a different look or a different sound, so to speak, but not really because also Sony's tuning is the same. So while the drivers are going to probably feel a little more efficient, which is why battery life gets a slight improvement here, Sony has not really messed with the sound here. And that's why I'm going to recommend that you go to the Sound Connect app, iOS or Android, and maybe tinker around with it. Use Finder Equalizer to maybe get something that might be tuned more towards your ears, or play around with the equalizer in the app, which now is a 10-band EQ. It was 5-band previously, it's 10 bands now, so you got a lot more granular control over how you want to tailor that sound. I think it's well worth doing. When you combine those 2 things together in practice, what you get is outstanding noise cancellation. Fantastic. I flew with these, I commuted with these, I was in different vehicles, I was on the street. I tried them anywhere I could to get a sense of what they were like. And again, I've used Sony headphones, I've tested Sony headphones going back multiple generations. So I looked at the nuances. Now, one of the key things with the noise cancellation that I noticed is that the high frequency sounds that pierce through are not the same as they were before, meaning that while a siren or a screaming baby that might be nearby will probably pierce the noise canceling walls here, you will notice that certain other sounds, especially if they're from a further distance away, won't penetrate the same way. It's very cool, and one of those things where you kind of expect after 3 years of evolution that Sony would find a way to make those even better. The number of extra mics definitely helps with that, which is why also when you're on calls, you'll notice too that your voice will sound better to the caller, who will probably point that out if you ask, but you will also hear them better too, despite what's going on around you. So it is technically possible to have a good conversation while you're out and about, especially given that wind noise doesn't penetrate quite the same way as it used to. So if you're outside, you're walking home, you're on a call, you'll probably be able to handle that call pretty crisply without any issues, despite the fact of what's going on around. Music sounds great. Spatial audio is pretty good too. So even if you're not listening to 360 reality audio, Sony's own format, you can still benefit from spatial audio tracks from sources that provide them. So that's fine. Now, generally though, the audio quality is fine. I really do think it is worth tinkering with it to customize and tailor it a little more to what you like. Other brands I find do this a little better out of the box than Sony does. Don't get me wrong, they sound great out of the box, but I feel like there's a little bit of a higher level that they can get to that might feel also a little more personalized. One of my favorite features is quick attention mode. So if I hold my hand over the right ear cup, I can then listen to an announcement. I can hear someone talking to me. I can quickly chat with someone, exchange a few words. And all I got to do is just hold it like this. That's it. Now, this is not a new feature. Sony's had this for a couple generations now, but it works so seamlessly, and it feels like it's actually a little quicker this time in the way that it activates. I should mention ambient sound too. So ambient sound is also a lot better. I'm using it right now as I'm talking to you while wearing these, and I'm coming through really, really clear. So even if you're wearing headphones and you're having a longer conversation, you don't necessarily have to take them off to hear what someone is saying. That could change a little bit if it's a busier or noisier environment, because then the mics are trying to pipe in the ambient sound, which you don't necessarily want because you want to hear who you're talking to. But nevertheless, all this technology that I'm talking about here, now how does it affect battery life? There is a bigger battery in here. And while on paper, Sony says that they're about 30 hours out of the box at default volume, you actually can stretch it out a little more here, mainly because the efficacy of the mics in particular and the noise cancellation means that it's drawing less power. I don't know this for an absolute fact, but it is one of the conclusions I'm drawing, because if I'm able to cancel out more noise, I don't have to raise the volume as much, and volume levels are always a killer for battery life too. So obviously if you crank up the volume, you're not going to last very long. That's why I don't think you'd be surprised if you end up north of 30 hours on a fairly regular basis, based on how often you're listening at a certain volume level and how often you're using ANC. But nevertheless, 30 hours plus, you could probably get there quite easily on a regular basis. If you're stuck for time, a quick 3-minute charge can get you up to 3 hours of playback, so that's pretty good. If you're going to the gym or you're just commuting and you just want to listen to something, you can in a fairly quick time. There is no IP protection here, so just to note, if you are going to use these in the gym, they absolutely need to be cleaned and wiped down after every workout, just to be sure that nothing's going to leak in there. And that's my review of the Sony WH-1000XM6, available at Best Buy now. You can check out more by clicking that link below. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.